Hello and welcome to PTV Tonight. My name is Lilian Ogazi. As part of activities commemorating the 2018 World Day Against Trafficking in Persons, some activists in the Federal Capital Territory have called on the federal government to handle issues of human trafficking the same way it handled the Ebola epidemic a few years ago. Executive Director of the DVAT Top Center for African Development, Joseph Osigwe, stated this in a chat with journalists on Thursday. Emmanuel Bagudu tells us more.
This is yet another Global Awareness Day against human trafficking. And for the DVAT Center for African Development, it is not business as usual. The political class has to be involved this time.
The human trafficking has continued to thrive in Nigeria due to lack of political will and commitment by political leaders. It is obvious that political leaders are not much interested in the fight against the human trafficking. It's quite obvious. And this is an impediment to our work, because as civil society organizations, our own is to do advocacy and all that. But no matter the level of advocacy, awareness, training, there is an urgent need for political will and commitment by our political leaders in the fight against human trafficking. It's so important.
It is part of the activities of the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons, commemorated 30th July every year. And the 2018 edition is themed The Need for Political Will in Combating Human Trafficking.
To commemorate this year World Day Against Human Trafficking in Person, DVAT Center for African Development organized the event we are in now, which is TOCAM World Day Conference. It's actually for us to call on political leaders to take strategic actions that will help in fighting against human trafficking.
For DVAT, the theme is very apt, considering the world rating of Nigeria amongst the countries combating human trafficking.
The second thing means that even though the government is taking action, but the action is not enough. There are also loopholes. There are not much research going on in Nigeria to tackle human trafficking, and the funding to tackle human trafficking is not even well enough. We still have more people being trafficked. So, and if you look at the rates, there have been an increase in the level of human trafficking, which means that if government is doing well enough, it's supposed to be measurable to the level of people who have been trafficked.
At the end, these activists want the political elite to show their political will by taking human trafficking with sense of urgency and emergency, just like it handled Ebola epidemic. Emmanuel Bagudu, PTV News, Abuja.
Now joining me on the news is Charity Njemanze, a social rights activist. You're welcome to PTV.
Thank you.
Well, she's here.
Njemanze.
I'm really sorry. Anyways, now you're here to talk about the human trafficking. Yes. Now let's start with the theme, the need for political will in combating human trafficking. What comes to mind?
So thus far, we have very beautiful laws written in paper, nicely documented and hidden in between the covers of books in different formats. We have wonderful policies that the Anti-Human Trafficking Act exists. But people do not know the content of this, and even the law enforcement agencies are unaware the magnitude of the content of these things. And it probably is the reason why we can account for an increase in human trafficking, irrespective of, you know, the up-to-date things in place.
Okay, now trafficking, from what we've seen, they say trafficking is worse than Ebola, and the federal government should handle it the way they handle Ebola.
Yes.
What does that mean?
I mean, it's as serious as the Ebola epidemic. We have a lot of people who are trapped in different places and their rights are consistently violated. We have a lot of people who are trafficked for different reasons, whether they're trafficked for sexual exploitations or they're trafficked for for organ harvests, because a lot of people are actually trafficked for organ harvest. And even within Nigeria, the dynamics, we have the local trafficking that's within Nigeria, and then the external trafficking, whether it's people who are trafficked within Nigeria or out of Nigeria. The numbers are very high. Why do we need the political will? Because the political will sets the agenda for the implementation of the legal frameworks that exist. If the police is supposed to do something, is there adequate funding for the police to do the needful? Because the police has an anti-trafficking unit. The NAPTIP NAPTIP exists as a body. NAPTIP generates reports and even makes reports available to international community on different platforms. But is NAPTIP funded well enough to meet the needs of trafficking, whether it's within Nigeria or outside Nigeria? The answer is no. The way the NAPTIP officials function, how they handle the people who are victims of this, what's the biggest problem, their biggest challenge, honestly, is funding, access to funding. If there's a Nigerian somewhere in the world that is trapped, is there somewhere the person can send a distress message to, and is the government going to be willing to evacuate the person as soon as possible? These are the places we want to get to. And then when we talk about trafficking, I would not be doing justice if I don't talk about the latest style of trafficking introduced by terrorists, which is the abductions of different people to use them as collateral for negotiations or whatever the need is. That is part of trafficking. If we can make the laws against trafficking in Nigeria to be more effective, it means that irrespective of your social status, your affiliations, religious, whatever, traditional, cultural, or whatever, the law would find you.
Okay, now let's talk about those that are more vulnerable. Do we have a particular category of people that are more vulnerable to fall victims of trafficking?
I would say that women, children, and people with disabilities, because a lot of times some families who have people with disabilities as family members, instead of taking care of them, would rather have them put on the streets, to beg for alms and generate as a means of generating money for the family. Now that's trafficking, that's human trafficking. These people are entitled to living a proper life and participating as properly as we all do in society. Children, because of their innocence, it's easy to move them from place to place and then exploit, make monetary reasons from them. Women, a lot of times when women are trafficked, it is mostly for sexual gratifications here or there. And we keep saying something. So there's the thing about how do you know you're about to be trafficked? How do you know that you could be trafficked? If you need to donate any body parts, to swear to anything, to say you will not run or you will not tell or you will not do anything, that is the first tell sign that you're about to be trafficked. So in line with this, as the awareness increases, obviously the reportage is high. I wouldn't say it's only the trafficking. The traffickers are getting more sophisticated in their means of trafficking, but the reportage on trafficking issues is also increasing. Okay. Now we need political will to ensure that we have systems in place ready to handle the increase in reportage of human trafficking in line with modern and current world best practices.
Okay, now you spoke about the traffickers are modernized now and all.
Yes.
So what are these tricks the traffickers really use to deceive young Nigerian women and children and those that are disabled?
I just spoke about a few of them. Things like, there's a greener pasture for you. You make money out there, or you can make money out there faster. The amount of money a lot of people put together to give traffickers to move them out of the country is enough to set up a medium-sized business in most cases, not even a small-scale business, a medium-scale business. So if more people are aware of this, better for us. In Edo State, we had Obas come out and swear publicly that anybody who is engaging in trafficking, a lot of calamitous things should befall the people. Now, this was some goodwill. This is some political goodwill from the traditional leaders. So when traditional leaders come up and back the traffickers, you would see that about the time that happened, a lot of people who have been trafficked started releasing videos online saying, this is where I am, this is who I am, I not going to do again, I will not do again. And this person says they are going to kill me. In case anything happens, this is the person you people should hold. And it emboldens more people to dare to free themselves from the shackles of the traffickers. So there are so many things that can be used. Children and other people, because of the vulnerabilities. People want to go to school. People want to have an opportunity to be in a better condition than be in villages and the rest of them. But the conditions that they have to face to achieve that are very
Yeah. Okay, now at this point, now what level of collaboration do you have or do we have with international organizations in combating trafficking, and how effective has it been so far, especially in countries like Italy, where we have high level of traffic going on?
Well, it's not just Italy. Italy and a lot of other European countries have those kind of statistics. And then we can see that also towards the Middle East, we have high numbers of people who are trafficked there. And then in also some parts of Africa, you know, a lot of people are trafficked to those places. And there are also the people who are constantly trafficked to Asia to work in the factories. You know, so when these people go, they're put in very uncomfortable conditions and they stay, and it's they're made to man machines and the rest of them. So we have a lot of collaborations with different state government, different countries, you know, different other countries are collaborating, different funding agencies are collaborating to do different things. But then there's a limit to what they can do. They cannot do what the government is supposed to do. And so who is this government? We that voted people into political offices, and the people who we voted into political offices. That's the full definition of who this government is. So when we are holding the people in political offices accountable, we also have the blame, because we are the checkmaters of the system. We are the ones that can cry and say, no, this is happening or this is not happening. Now, why is the need to talk about this period? Another election period is coming. More people are being sensitized on different things to talk about. We want to increase the bargaining power of people, especially the youths. So when people come and say, vote for me in this way or don't vote for me in this way, these are topical world issues that you should use and say, okay, this is what is happening, this is what we want from you. Do you commit to combating human trafficking? Do you commit to ensuring that there's adequate funding for the war against human trafficking to go on? Yes, I commit. Then these are the kind of people we should be promoting. So these kind of fora now, where we have opportunities to sensitize people on the fact that elections are an opportunity to introduce people who are aware of the problems, so that it will be easier to tackle the problem. That would help us have better political will in tackling the problems. That's...
Okay, now let's talk about the children. You said they are really vulnerable. And now, at this point in time, we have a lot of children that have access to the internet and social media. And this is a way to actually access them.
Yes.
So now, what level of awareness are you creating for parents to be able to monitor what their kids do on the internet? And how have that awareness been able to reach out to a certain number of parents and children as well?
So when you look at the cyber laws, you have a lot that helps to checkmate different kinds of crimes, including human trafficking, whether it's bullying, different kinds of crimes, you know, it's possible to perpetrate them using the internet. The first thing, exploiting ignorance had been a problem in times past, but with the degrees of advocacies going on, there are more people who are better aware. More parents are encouraged to ensure that their children are using children-friendly sites.
Okay.
There are children-friendly sites. I think there's, instead of using the Google, for instance, you have Kindle for children. So that way, child content is limited. But then let's not also forget that criminals also always prepare whenever they want to, act. So a criminal, a grown adult, can sign up on those platforms as a child and do all those things. That's the best reason why we encourage people to be their children's friends. Your children should be able to tell you the most stupid things so that you know what is happening, you know where there's a possible red flag. If anything goes wrong, you know how to trace. You should know who your children's friends are. Try and know the families of your children's friends. Whatever the situation is, remember that I talked about now people who are trafficked so that their organs get harvested, meaning they kill them to take out their organs, internal organs, and put in the black market. So if you're not careful enough, there's an extent to which people can be careful. But much as they're trying to be careful, we also need the support of the government to act as a buffer on whatever efforts they are putting in. And then together, in collaborative efforts, whether it's the internal government or there are collaborations with the external bodies, because, that's why you have the immigration service at the airport, checking through passports and the rest of them. But we also have alert systems where people are encouraged to speak up. There's the Talkam campaign, and the Talkam campaign happens to have an app grown by Nigerian youths to solve our problems, for people to be able to report crimes via text messages or through the internet. Now, where the government has good political will, the government will invest in such homegrown technologies to solve our problems. And that's why more and more we keep advocating for good political will, increase in political will. Until we have that, human trafficking is going to continually be a menace to us.
Okay, say I'm in my neighborhood. How do I know a person who is being trafficked?
Oh, there's several things. For starters, we encourage mandatory reporting. Anywhere you frequently hear cries from and the rest of them, it will help if you report and say, I frequently hear a child crying from this place, so I frequently hear a cry. You don't even need to know whether it's a child or an adult. I frequently hear somebody crying there. I think something is wrong. Now you report to the police and the NAPTIP, sometimes civil defense, depending on who is closest to you. You make these reports and then they are duty bound to protect life and property of Nigerians. So it is their right to investigate. And if you report and they are not doing anything, luckily these days there's the social media. It's not possible that you come out on social media and mention these things and people do not know. And also sometimes some people actually give signs. Some people make you know that they're uncomfortable. If you notice constant discomfort being meted to somebody, the first thing is to ask questions. We encourage everybody to be busybodies because it takes a village to keep the village safe. Everybody has a role to play. And so we encourage community policing. We encourage people to know your neighbors, know what is happening next door. If you feel activities happen scarcely, report to the police, report to people, let them come and investigate. After all, that's how people are kidnapped and kept in certain places and subjected to different kinds of torturous activities. And they're stored in people's neighborhoods and the people do not know. So it's your business to know what is happening everywhere around you.
Okay, so now what are your recommendations on way to end trafficking in Nigeria?
Oh, so there are a lot of world best practices. Now, the response protocols to addressing human trafficking need to be heavily invested in. Of the different categories of countries, and that this grading is done as per the response protocols. Nigeria is graded in the 3rd category. Okay. So that tells you that people are not so safe in Nigeria. In the event you get to be trafficked, and this trafficking, I'm not telling you that you're willingly submitting yourself. If somehow you're abducted and you're subjected to different things, the response protocol or how you are rescued are currently not existent. We need, because in those cases, a lot of people, like those who are sexually violated, there's post-traumatic stress disorders that they deal with, a lot of trauma. We don't have all of that readily available. Those things are still very much a luxury. And then, the basics, the shelters, access to shelters. In some cases, like in some events I was in earlier in the day, there was a complaint by some law enforcement agencies that they are unable to find shelters within certain local governments. So the state governments need to see it as serious as the federal government sees it. We find more activity happening around the federal than in the states. The state governments need to be there needs to be increased political will at the state level. When there is increased political will at the state level, our borders will not be so porous. We can account more. As long as we cannot account for everybody that crosses our borders, then the problems will continue. It means that hundreds, thousands, tens of Nigerians can be carted away from Nigeria, or people can even be brought into Nigeria. Traffickers can import people into Nigeria, and we don't want Nigeria to be a safe haven for traffickers. So for what it's worth, this is why we are strategic enough to call for increase in political goodwill. The people who are going to effect the changes we want are those who are going to work in budget and planning at federal level and at state levels, at the local government levels, because these are deliberate items that should be planned for.
Okay, now finally, before you go, what is your word to Nigerians today on human trafficking, war against human trafficking, and as a person who is trafficked now, if I can't get access to people in my community to drag attention to me, how do I reach out?
Oh, there's so many ways. The NAPTIP has a series of platforms that you can indicate, you can place distress calls. So NAPTIP does have that platform. Police does have the platform. But another thing I encourage people to do, there are NGOs. Reach out to NGOs. That way, even if these law enforcement agencies are not being as swift as we hope they would be, the NGOs can do follow-ups. The NGOs can invite the media. The Libya problem was blown up very extensively by the media. So the NGOs have a good access to the media and can blow this up to, at that point in time, attract needed political goodwill. Can you imagine what would have happened that period? This was a few months ago. If the social media didn't go agog that way, so many people were brought back from Libya, you know, within that period of time. Is it that these people have not been there? Between that time and now, there are still people who are being trafficked. In fact, as a result of the World Press Conference that we held today, many people are suddenly reporting other cases of trafficking going on and people who they are trying to rescue from different places. Now, this information exists. We need political goodwill. We need to know that when we go to NAPTIP, latest within 2 weeks, we'll see this person back. Latest within 2 weeks, we'll be able to track whoever so-and-so is. Well, it's everybody's business. It takes a village to keep everybody safe.
All right. Thank you very much for coming on the news
Thank
tonight.
you for having me.